Today we're taking a look back at the iPhone XR. It was released in 2018, but it's still a good phone in 2024. Let me tell you why. You can pick them up for about 200 euros used, which isn't that much when you consider what you can all do with this phone still in 2024. Because it's an iPhone, it runs on iOS of course, and the software is still very stable. It actually gets an update to iOS 18, which is the newest iOS version. But it probably won't get a lot of updates after this, because it's already 6 years old. But for a phone that's already 6 years old, it still feels smooth. You can easily switch between apps and it still works fine. Scrolling through social media, doing basic things like watching YouTube, it's all completely fine. Of course, it's already an older phone, so don't expect the best performance ever. But for a 200 euro phone, you can still do a lot with it. You can notice that the phone is still very stable. Sometimes it lags a little bit, which can be annoying, but most of the time it still works smooth. But keep in mind that it probably won't get a lot of software updates anymore in the future, so some apps might not work anymore in the future. And the new iOS 18 update brings a lot of features now to this phone. So now you can adjust the home screen and customize it to whatever you like, and change the position of the icons on your home screen. The iPhone XR has 64, 128 or 256 GB of storage, and in my opinion the 64 GB isn't that much anymore. If you're someone who has a lot of apps on your phone and takes a lot of photos, then you probably want to get the 256 GB model. But if you take almost no photos, don't use a lot of apps, then the 64 GB model is probably enough. But I recommend to get at least the 128 GB model, because 64 GB can definitely be a little bit limiting sometimes. The build of the iPhone XR is still amazing in my opinion. The phone feels like it's really well built with the aluminum sides and the glass on the back. But keep in mind that it's glass on the back, so when you drop glass it breaks of course, so make sure to put a case on the phone. And sadly, like all newer iPhones, it doesn't have a headphone jack, which is really disappointing in my opinion. So you need to use an adapter or wireless earbuds. And the phone also has a lightning port, which I don't like. Of course it works, but unlike USB-C, you have to keep a separate charging cable with you if you want to charge your phone. The phone also has a nice mute switch on the side. Just switch it and then your phone will be on silent mode. And the front of the phone also looks nice. It has thin symmetrical bezels with a small notch on the top. And of course the bezels aren't as thin as the newer iPhones, but it's definitely not bad either. And the screen is definitely much better in my opinion compared to the iPhone SE 3rd generation. The nice thing about the iPhone XR is that it does have wireless charging, and it's also water resistant, so you have to worry less about water damage. And the battery life of the iPhone XR was definitely amazing back then. But now batteries are getting worse, but that doesn't mean that it's terrible. You can still get through a day with the iPhone XR battery. But if you use your phone a lot, then you might not be able to get through a full day. And if you buy one used, then it's also important to check the battery health in the battery settings. The screen on the iPhone XR is still really nice. It's only 720p and some people really complained about it back then, but I think it isn't a big issue. Unless you start to get really close with your eyes, but most people look at their phones from a distance. It's only a 60 Hz panel, but because the animations of iOS are so nice, it isn't a big issue for most people, including me. And the brightness of the screen is also great in my opinion. Even outside it's most of the time readable, except when there is a lot of sun. It has a speaker on the bottom and it also uses the earpiece as a speaker, so that means it has stereo speakers and they sound decent but nothing amazing. And for the unlocking methods there's no fingerprint sensor, however it does work with Face ID, which means you can unlock the phone with your face and that always works really fast and reliable. The camera of the iPhone XR isn't amazing. Yes, it can still take some nice photos and you can get some good results with it. However, it's definitely not comparable to today's modern smartphones. And especially in lower light, it definitely gets a lot worse. So yes, you can still get some really nice photos out of this camera, but compared to newer phones, it is definitely a step down. And it also only has a single lens. So no ultra-wide or telephoto. But the video quality of the iPhone XR is nice and you can shoot up to 4K at 60 FPS. It has the basic camera features like most other Apple smartphones. And the camera app is decent, but you don't have a lot of manual control in the camera. It's just point and shoot. So should you still buy the iPhone XR in 2024? If you're someone who really likes to have an iPhone and don't want to spend a lot of money and you don't need the best camera or the best performance, then this can still be a decent phone. Because the battery life is still good, it has the iOS 18 update and the performance is still decent. But of course it is a phone that's 6 years old, so it is starting to show its age in a lot of ways. For example, the camera isn't amazing, and while the performance is good, it isn't amazingly fast. Keep in mind that they probably won't get a lot of updates anymore, so in a few years not all apps will work anymore. But of course it's also a lot cheaper compared to a lot of other phones. What do you think of the iPhone XR? Do you still have one or are you planning on buying one? Let me know in the comments down below and thank you so much for watching.